Everyone else changed their style, their opinions, their entire personality overnight, and this specific person stayed exactly the same. No panic, no fear of missing out, no visible need to prove anything by keeping up. If you assume this person is simply falling behind or trying too hard to seem different, you would be wrong. This person is not lacking information. They see the exact same trend everyone else does. Something in how they process it is simply genuinely different, and Carl Jung's understanding of individuation offers a precise explanation for exactly what that difference actually is. Jung believed that most people, for most of their lives, remain heavily influenced by what he called the collective external standards, opinions, and expectations absorbed from the surrounding culture rather than genuinely, independently examined. A person operating primarily from this collective orientation tends to locate their sense of value and correctness outside themselves, in the visible approval of others, in whatever a large enough group of people currently seems to be doing or believing. Jung considered this orientation genuinely necessary in early development, but he believed real, mature individuation requires a person to gradually shift their actual source of judgment inward, developing a genuine subjective standard capable of evaluating something on its own actual merits, regardless of how many other people currently happen to be doing it. This explains precisely why certain people remain so consistently unmoved by even the most powerful widely adopted trend, since the actual evaluation process was never primarily anchored to collective approval in the first place. When this specific kind of person encounters something the entire world is currently praising, a viral trend, a widely celebrated book, a rapidly spreading opinion, they continue applying their own genuinely independent judgment, and if that honest internal evaluation concludes the thing is simply not valuable to them personally, they will say so plainly, rather than pretending otherwise to avoid the discomfort of standing apart from the visible crowd. Here is what makes this understanding genuinely useful, rather than simply an interesting personality observation. Jung's framework suggests this specific capacity is not something certain people are simply born with while others are not. It reflects, at least in significant part, the actual ongoing developmental work of individuation, the gradual deliberate shift from an external collective source of validation toward a genuine internal one. A person who has done more of this specific work naturally relies less on social proof, the simple reassuring fact that many other people are doing something, as the actual evidence that the thing is genuinely worth their own time and attention. This also explains why this specific kind of person is rarely, if ever, described as bitter or contemptuous toward people who do enthusiastically follow trends. Jung's understanding suggests genuine individuation does not require judging other people's choices harshly. It simply requires trusting your own, honestly examined judgment enough that you no longer need external collective validation in order to feel confident in your own actual evaluation. This produces a specific quality, calm rather than defensive, genuinely secure rather than performing contrarian resistance for its own sake. Here is what actually helps in developing more of this specific capacity directly. If you find yourself frequently swept along by trends you do not genuinely independently value, it helps to build a deliberate pause between encountering something widely popular and actually forming your own opinion about it, resisting the urge to immediately adopt the crowd's visible enthusiasm as your own before you have actually on its own specific merits. This small deliberate pause is often exactly what allows a genuine internal judgment to actually form, rather than being automatically overwritten by the immediate powerful pull of visible social proof. There is a second thing worth practicing directly. It helps to notice honestly the specific feeling of discomfort that arises when your own genuine evaluation differs from a trend's widespread popularity, since this discomfort is often precisely the signal that your external collective orientation is currently overriding your own, more genuine internal judgment. Learning to tolerate the specific discomfort, rather than immediately resolving it by simply falling in line with the crowd, is itself a genuine skill worth developing patiently over time. If you recognize this specific unmoved quality in your own relationship to trends, hear this clearly. This was never evidence of simply being contrarian or difficult. According to Jung's understanding, it reflects real, ongoing individuation, a genuine shift from external, collective validation toward honest internal standard, one that most people never fully develop precisely because it requires tolerating real, ongoing discomfort whenever their own honest judgment happens to differ from the visible crowd. Think honestly about the last widely popular trend you either joined or resisted, and consider whether your actual decision came from a genuine internal evaluation of the thing itself, or simply from the reassuring fact that a great many other people were already doing it. Right below the single word for the specific trend you followed most recently despite genuinely not caring about it, naming it honestly, and building a small, deliberate pause before your next automatic response to collective enthusiasm is the real and practical way you begin developing the exact capacity this specific, unmoved kind of person has already genuinely built. Either is a final piece worth naming, since it distinguishes this specific quality from simple stubbornness or a fixed refusal to ever change one's mind. Jung's understanding of genuine individuation does not require permanent, rigid resistance to everything popular. It requires an honest, ongoing willingness to actually evaluate each new trend on its own specific merits, which means this same, genuinely independent judgment might occasionally, sincerely conclude that a particular trend actually is worth joining, not because everyone else is doing it, but because an honest, internal evaluation genuinely arrived at that same conclusion on its own. The actual marker of this capacity was never permanent refusal. It was genuine, case-by-case independence from the crowd's automatic pull. Because never seeming to join any trend at all was never, according to Carl Jung's understanding, evidence of simply being different for its own sake. It was the visible result of real, ongoing individuation, trusting an honestly examined internal judgment over the reassuring external pull of whatever the collective crowd currently happens to be doing.